had me at cello, cello. You had me at cello. You had me at cello. Oh, you had me at cello. Good afternoon, everybody. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday. Time to stop whatever else you are doing and go to that number one priority, practicing cello. Practice cello this evening and all Saturday and Sunday as much as you can. Isn't it amazing how much you can get in over a weekend if you are determined to do so? And in many cases, if you are inspired to do so. So, 5 o'clock on Friday, time for some inspiration, hopefully. I know I try to provide it through my website and such, but I know that the most successful thing from my perspective is being able to check in with other cellists around the country, around the world, and see what they're up to and what drives them. So with me today is Dr. Ka Wai Yu of Dixie State University. I'm thrilled to have him as my guest. Ka Wai, how are you doing?
Doing wonderful.
Excellent, excellent. Say, for our audience members who may not know you too well, would you tell about your musical background?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me join you in this program. My name is Ka Wai Yu. I teach at Dixie State University. I teach cello and chamber music there, and you can also find me adjudicating in local competitions, festivals, giving workshop, masterclass to high school youth orchestras that I do regularly in the Southwest, and also summer music camps. And I co-direct the Castle Rock Music Camp at St. George, Utah. And as a performer, I play, in the piano trio group, Zion Trio. And also, I'm quite a bit have interest in the early music, so I play in a period instrument ensemble called the Cosmopolitan Baroque. I'm also the principal cellist of the local Southwest Symphony Orchestra. And like Benjamin, I am associated with professional organizations. I'm currently the president of the Utah chapter of American String Teachers Association and the Cello Society of Southern Utah, that I am also the founder and the president, and I direct the cello festival, a DSU cello festival in my university every September, which is I'm looking forward to it. And I am also very interested in research. Do quite a bit of Benjamin, we might talk a little bit about that, about my Schumann. I'm also doing other early music related project, including the 5-string violoncello piccolo. That I've been, besides working on the 6th suite by Bach, that that might require that instrument, but also commission new pieces for that instrument. So, quick talk about my background. Originally from Hong Kong, so I got my degree in Chinese University of Hong Kong for my music, and then my family did immigrate to the state when I was around college time, and then after college, and then I spent 1 year in Atlanta, Georgia, and there I studied with David Starkweather from University of Georgia for 1 year. But I complete my Master of Music degree in Indiana University, where I work with Helga Winold, Professor Helga Winold, and then I got my DMA, doctorate degree, from University of Illinois. So my major is cello performance, and then I have a minor in historical performance practice. And before moving to Utah, I actually spent 6 to 7 years as a freelance musician, working in the Midwest quite a bit, and performing in different groups and teaching adjuncts at Eastern Illinois University and Indiana Wesleyan. And then this job came 2015, and I decided that, it's time to have a home base and try to build something more permanent with a full-time position. So here I am.
Outstanding. Now, so I think I'm just trying to estimate how many years ago this was kind of the case. Let's pick a number like 50 years ago, 75 years ago. I think it was often kind of said that if you really wanted to be a very high-level cello player, you should just kind of ignore everything else and just practice. But, for example, I studied with Phyllis Young, who would make parallels between just every aspect of life and cello playing. And I love to see examples like yourself of people who, I mean, you, like what you say, you research, you arrange, you conduct, you do early music, you do adjudication, you are basically, you are an administrator for some of the things that you, the camps and such that you run. And you still, I mean, I don't think like, and still you find a way to be a high-level cellist. I think you let those things inform and inspire your playing and keep you advancing and maturing as a cellist. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like that's, now obviously, you have to balance your time and, energy, that you can't do everything perfectly. But actually, the interesting thing about music is it's the depth of it, the broad, the width and breadth. Because if you have more experience with different things and have the versatility, will actually give you more support. The diversity of your experience add to your overall ability to communicate in music. And obviously, you have to practice. Obviously, you have to spend time to do the tough work.
All right, so let's take a few of those. For example, your experience on Baroque cello and da gamba, how does that inform your approach to playing overall?
I think, well, actually it's interesting. Performance with insights and insightful performance. Can be two different things. I mean, but the main thing is it's when I feel like what happened is with Baroque music, playing on period instruments and modern instruments, it kind of let me see a little bit of the bigger picture of things. And well, first of all, more sensitive to the style of the music. Get to know the structure of the music and the integrity of the music itself, and how I could put together. But I always just tell people about that. It's like, well, actually, you know what? I get to play new music with originality. And on the other hand, on the other side, rediscover old music with new directions. Because it's an interesting thing, because if you haven't played those music the way maybe it would be intended or close to a different, anyway, just you look back at different ways, it sounds different to the, and new music one day will become old, but then, if you play the old music in a new ways or explore them, show it to the audience, now it sounds new to them.
Very cool. Now, let's see. That way of thinking about what, you even said, the integrity of the music.
Absolutely.
Did that kind of way of thinking about when you go from new music to old music and everything in between kind of help you become better at arranging, that in turn led you to do the Schumann Cello Concerto project?
Yeah, it's because we need both. The new elements in the. You want to go back to the source. To by going back to the source, because there are so many additions of all the pieces, including the Schumann Cello Concerto that you were talking about. And a lot of time the performers, gave all the fingering and then bowings and then, which is not a bad thing, by the way, but it's very helpful for the students to learn it. But then sometimes we forgot what's already there that Schumann or in manuscript, and that's why I go back to the older source and try to put it back, and that actually will create a new, like, kind of bring it back. It will sound refreshing to the people that, oh yeah, I'm used to this addition, but now, oh, this is what actually Schumann might have written. And but that Schumann project is very interesting because Schumann actually wrote to his publisher Breitkopf saying that, well, I'd like to have an edition for a cello and string quartet, and then the publisher saying, oh no, it's not going to sell, so we're not going to do it. But he didn't do it. But then I'll do it. and interestingly, 19th century, there was that performance practice that concertos played with string quartet accompanied, like Chopin's piano concerto, which is very common. And so it created that kind of interesting atmosphere, like the chamber size of things, the intimacy of the piece, and show to the audience in the different new ways. So it's it's both eye-opening for the performer, arranger, and also the audience.
Terrific. Yeah, I like it. I think it's a very, very well done. So let's see. Another question. You mentioned the breadth of music before, and that certainly has led you to present on a variety of topics. The one I don't think I know anything about, I see on your website, there's a presentation you did for the Historical Keyboard Society. Even what was that on?
Oh, the current one, the Western historical, or the old with the historical. Yeah, that's I think that was like 2015, 16. So that was actually talking about the continual bass line that. We all, like in the basso continuo, we usually have a bass line instrument like a cello, a bassoon, a gamba, and then playing the bass line alone, and then there's a keyboard instrument joined together to play, to realize the harmonies, the chords, figured bass, and that we were actually looking at that particular presentation. Me and my friend, Dr. Sonia Lee, the harpsichordist. What was actually looking at to see, well, actually, there may be certain situation when the cello is actually, or the continual, the bass line person may be required to not just only playing the bass line, but also filling harmonies, filling chords. And which happened quite a bit for viola da gamba, another instrument that I happen to be able to play. And so that's basically we look at some different examples from the history and see, explore, should we interpret that way or not, and things. So it's it was fascinating for me because I the whole conference is mostly pianists, keyboardists. It's like, there's a cellist showing up, but we play a lot with keyboardists. In particular in Baroque music when we play continuo. So that's helpful to study that.
Wouldn't you say that even in a situation in which somebody playing cello as part of a continuo is not necessarily expected to roll the chords, that it's really helpful to understand those figured bass symbols and what they mean?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's actually I use a lot in my teaching because I keep telling my students because, well, if you're a pianist, they study the harmonies. They actually analyze the piece. Not all of them, but a lot of teachers, one of the main thing for pianists is analyze the whole piece. But for cellists, somehow we think, we're a melodic instrument. We just play beautifully and sing. But it's so important to actually analyze. There are certain, when you try to interpret it like key change or surprise in this piece musically. Why? Because it's the harmony. And obviously, Bach, when you play Bach cello suite, there's the line there, a single line instrument, but there's implied harmony that you have to figure that out. But it's not limited to Bach. And thank you for bringing it out.
Well, and at Indiana, I think of Alan Winold's two-volume book on the Bach suites. Isn't that? I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff out there on the Bach suites, but I love that what he did. It just there's such a wealth of information in there.
Yes, definitely.
All right, now I want to ask you about another thing. I see on your bio that another thing I didn't know about you is among your mentors, you list a couple of singers. And I think as cellists, where we have very often we're asked to be the tenor voice and the writing is as lyrical and sostenuto as what you often find for voice. Was the connection something like that, or some other means by which you came to have a couple of singers as major mentors?
So actually, I when I was in undergraduate studies, I actually minored in voice. I
Ah,
majored in cello and minored in voice, and I one of the mentors listed actually was my mom,
all right.
and Chiu-May Wong, and then Raymond Fu is another teacher that I had in Hong Kong. He's fantastic. He was the director of the Oratorio Society in Hong Kong, and Opera Society, and I so it's always a big part of me singing. In fact, I was very active in choir. I actually was involved in some opera productions when I was in Hong Kong back then, and I continue to take opportunity that I whenever I could sing. In fact, I actually make one of the main that's one of the main major influences that for my doctoral thesis, which is on the vocal influences that can be found in the cello concerto by Schumann. And I did also, besides the string quartet version for the cello concerto, but I also did a string quartet arrangement for the Dichterliebe. In fact, now I have all the songs of that song cycle with singer and string quartet.
Wow. I did not know that either.
But back to your point though, it's I think it's important for instrumentalists to think about what the singer's thinking,
Mhm.
uh, and the most direct thing is to be able to breathe. And we sometimes forgot, like when I'm sure you talk to your students, like you got to breathe in the phrases. And the other thing besides breathing is diction. And that's not just related to Baroque or classical music, but specifically, it's particularly more important when we play earlier kind of music, like certain accentuation of the beats or certain because it's the phrasing, because this is the language, like and so you don't try to accent every beat or like play everything so even because it's there's a tendency in the 21st century now, like okay, like we're going to play everything perfectly, every note being heard, like, but it sounds almost like a machine if you don't feel the direction of the music. And so
Oh, amen. Couldn't agree more. All right. So a couple more questions. One of them is, what projects do you have coming up this fall?
yeah, so I kind of mentioned in the beginning that I'm doing a violoncello piccolo project that's part of my faculty research. That instrument obviously was one of the candidates that because Bach requested a five-string instrument to play the cello suite number six. And of course, this is a debate, like, well, whether it is a violoncello piccolo or version da Spalla, or is it like viola composer. But anyway, so I'm gonna play that piece, but I'm also doing, trying to look for other repertoire of this instrument. Back to my, our discussion about new and old, how old music can, an old instrument, maybe you can have a new insight on it. So I commissioned two composers, Jennifer Baylor from University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and to write a piece for that instrument and forte piano, which is the ancestor of piano. And then have Luke Dunn from University of Utah up in Salt Lake City also wrote a piece unaccompanied for this violoncello piccolo. So I will premiere both in the fall semester. And something closer is that tomorrow I do have a concert tomorrow with my local cello society of Southern Utah cello ensemble group at the Homestead Resort Homestead Ranch Resort in Vail, Utah. So
Nice. Nice.
that one is not live stream because it's kind of like a not outdoor, but it's a different location. But and then I have other concert that sometimes will do both live in person and live stream that anybody are welcome to join.
Great. And what about your any of your camps or workshops that you would like to mention?
Oh yeah, so I just finished teaching two other music festivals, the Castle Rock Music Camp that I mentioned in June, and then I did the Intermountain Suzuki Institute up in Salt Lake City two weeks ago. But then I do have one coming up in July 12th to July 16th. This is the Mountain Springs Music Festival up in Salt Lake City, and it's a great chamber camp. So I'm going to work with some students on chamber music, and we'll perform some music for them and give some classes, lectures.
Excellent. Now, sometimes I'll end by asking, what do you have coming up? But with you, I wanted to end with a question about inspiration. Maybe this is two questions, but I'm going to see about combining it into one.
Okay.
Are, in terms of your willingness to not only try new things, but to just really do all manner of projects and activities related to music and to cello. You're a real go-getter. And so part of, I think, when we sit down to practice and we have our cello in our hands, and you have that mindset of the go-getter, like I'm going to devour this repertoire. I am going to tackle this challenging spot, and I'm going to conquer it. I mean, that can-do attitude just is really apparent if one checks out your website, for example, and gets to know what you're up to. So what words of advice do you have for people watching this who are hopefully about to sit down with their cello all weekend about just that can-do, on-fire attitude towards music and practice?
Yeah, I think there's several things you want to look into that. I think that's the passion is very important. It's, if you want to, I know it's important that we practice long time, but I think it's important that you don't just practice, but you practice with inspiration. And several things I would definitely just say, be curious, be willing to open up to new things, and that's something it's easier to said than to be done, and you will have to open yourself. There is a process, how you can gradually get used to that mentality, but for sure be authentic. Be honest to yourself. Go for something that you really enjoy. Sometimes it might be a small, sparkling idea, but you can actually build from there. And that's something I got from the Cello Society of Southern Utah, for example, that I co-founded in 2016. We actually just started the whole thing from, let's have a Christmas cello choir reading session of 10 people, and that's the starting point, and people are like, we play it, and then, of course, by the way, we have food also. So we play, and then we eat together, and then eventually, why don't we continue to explore other repertoire? And then we start playing more serious cello, ensemble repertoire, and looks like we're going to work on Villalobos Bachianas for number one in this fall in September. So never think that your idea is too small. I think once you have an interest. Look for it, try it. Of course, the other advice is be patient. You don't necessarily see the result today or tomorrow. You get together. It's an investment. Think about it that way. And last but not least is to collaborate. Because it's, if you do it yourself, it might not be that effective, because you get tired, you get burn, easy to, like you said, if you have too many things, you get burned out. So very often. But if you have a team, if you work with others, explore from their sides, you get inspired, first of all, or you can do together. It will be not as much for each person. So I think this will be something that I'll share with everybody, and I think it's a community. I think it's great that, like Benjamin, you're doing this, and we're sharing, and I think we inspire each other, and I think this is awesome.
Terrific. Oh, those are brilliant words of wisdom and inspiration. That collaboration idea and the community. That is wonderful stuff. Thank you so much, Dr. Yu. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Hey, thank you.
Right. And viewers, next week, my guest will be Luis Miguel Roja of Puerto Rico, another wonderful cellist. So you won't want to miss that either. And in the meantime, happy practicing.